grounding the 737 MAX altogether. The United States making this decision with the Federal Aviation Administration after finding new data linking Sunday's Ethiopian Airlines crash and last October's Lion Air crash. President Trump commented on the move.
We're going to be issuing an emergency order of prohibition to ground all flights of the 737 MAX 8 and the 737 MAX 9 and planes associated with that line. Planes that are in the air will be grounded. If they're the 737 MAX, will be grounded upon landing at the destination. Pilots have been notified. Airlines have been all notified. Airlines are agreeing with this. The safety of the American people and all people is our paramount concern.
Joining me right now is Roman & Associates founder and CEO Anthony Roman. Anthony, thanks very much for weighing in here.
Sure.
This is one of the most widely used planes across the country, right, and the world.
It is becoming one of the most widely used planes, and it's a fascinating aircraft with a 10% savings in fuel consumption. That's an enormous amount of money during global operations. It's also the best-selling aircraft in history. 5,100 firm orders for Boeing, and Boeing is set to lose $25 billion in market value.
Right, it's already lost $25 billion in market value since the Ethiopian crash happened. The stock is down about 10%. But what about this plane? What do we need to know about this plane? I mean, the fact that the FAA is now grounding all of the planes, travelers also are reacting to the 737's grounding. Listen to this.
I do trust the airlines. I do understand that any aircraft or any kind of anything could have an issue at any time. It doesn't mean everything's bad, or I feel pretty safe flying.
Actually, I was flying back from Daytona Beach, American Airlines today with a couple of flights, and I wanted to make sure what plane I was getting on because I probably wouldn't have gotten on the MAX.
If there's a known safety concern, then it's certainly worth putting in the effort to figure it out before anything else happens.
Anthony, what's your take on all of this?
Well, you know, pilots knew there was a problem. The FAA knew there was a problem prior to Lion Air and immediately following Lion Air. The FAA reported an airworthiness directive to Boeing to redo some of the computer code on the MCAS and autopilot system. That's not done unless they know there's some type of flaw in the system. But they have not reported to the public what that flaw may have been. There were 5 pilot reports to the NASA safety reporting system. Identical problems to the Lion Air situation and similar to what we see on the satellite data in the oscillations in the takeoff phase in Ethiopian Air as well. And these captains, seasoned U.S. carrier captains, reported to NASA that there were pitch oscillations, pitch down, uncommanded actions by the aircraft, auto throttles during the takeoff phase, not being in the correct position despite the input data placed in the computers by the pilot, verified to be correct. So all sorts of problems with this aircraft. The issue is these airplanes are much more complicated than airplanes in the early 2000s, the 90s, and the 80s. These are highly computerized machines, so not only are we dealing with more complexity in engines and systems, but now hundreds, if not millions, of lines of code in these computer systems that have to be dealt with.
Because after the Lion Air crash, the CEO of Boeing told us that there was an issue that the pilots needed to be updated about, that the plane was upgraded, there was a change in some of the operations, the pilot needed to be aware of those. Is it beyond that the pilots just need to be educated about this plane, or is it something bigger than that?
Well, usually accident phases are a combination of issues, and the lack of pilot awareness that this system was operating in the background, and the lack of pilot training to recognize and overcome any anomalies in the system is just a failure. Basically, It had to be a cost-saving failure because training time costs money, and the aviation industry is constantly trying, like all businesses, to drive its costs down.
Okay.
Not the best way to do it.
No, well, we'll be watching. There's obviously a major impact to Boeing, but the safety of Americans is the administration's first concern, so they're grounding all of them.
Yeah.
Anthony, thanks very much for weighing in. Appreciate it very much. Anthony Roman joining us there.